Well, I guess that's a good time to say welcome to another Hope, Power, and Healthcare with Chris Hemphill, and
The ever energetic Melissa Reilly.
you do have like you got a glow. I know there you might have some irritation going on that you were talking about, but you're glowing today, fam.
Oh, that's
You're
the
you're
peptides, Chris. I am deep in peptide land. Thank you. I'll tell my doctor.
For the people that are watching, this giant mug here is full of caffeine, so that's where mine is coming from.
Oh, I am caffeine free and peptided up.
Oh yeah, you've been caffeine free for a long time, right?
No, no, no. I am
Oh,
caffeine full. I'm caffeine full. My favorite energetic beverage is either a Celsius, please sponsor us, or Diet Coke. Like it is my magic elixir of activation, Diet Coke.
it was like 2 years ago whenever we met in person at a conference, and we met for a coffee chat, but you didn't drink coffee. So from that time on, I was like, oh, Melissa does not drink coffee. But clearly I was dead wrong.
No, you are correct. Melissa does not drink coffee, but Melissa loves caffeine. Like, I think
Got
caffeine
it.
normalizes me. I just don't pursue it in the form of a coffee.
Melissa takes caffeine in other forms. There's other
Yes.
ways to deliver that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. When a shot comes
Okay.
for the caffeine, I'm injecting that too.
Well, speaking of energy and vibes and all that, like there was a very important word that we were discussing ahead of the call that we thought we'd make the central focus of today's episode. And Melissa, if you'd like to run with the intro to the concept, I would love to riff on it with you.
Yeah. So the whole thing was sparked because as as things happen in this entrepreneur land, you get a lot of choices around who you get in business or even like get in bed with, right? And so this idea of trust has been really central to me. Like, who do you trust? How do you trust? How do you build that trust, right? And then who do you want to hitch your career wagon to? I think you and I fell into this beautifully natural partnership for the podcast where I think we trust each other, fam, and we've learned each other's styles, and
Mm-hmm.
we try to trade business deals with each other. But you can't do that with everybody. And so I wanted to tee up for our audience, and especially you, Chris, as you've built this incredible community out on the Discord that pings all the time in my workout class, right? How do you think about trust, and how should our listeners think about trust when they're deciding what company to join or what company to start or who to start the company with them?
I think about trust as something that has no real shortcuts. People are looking
Mm.
for shortcuts in the form of, oh, this person has 25,000 followers. They must be saying something interesting and helpful, or this post was widely shared, so there must be some validity to it. Or I'm talking to an LLM and it's telling me things that I vibe with,
No.
and sorry, I'll use a different word from the rest of the for the rest of the conversation. But the it's still like even though we have all these signals, they may be false flags. There is such a big importance and value to like really paying attention to who you're working with, who you've dealt with in the past, and just getting an understanding of I ask for this thing, or we do this thing, or we go into these things together. What's the type of output? What's the type of outcome that's going to come from working or talking with this person? Where's their expertise, and where do they fit into this tapestry? So I think that there's a risk right now where people like, whereas like a few years ago, someone would have asked for help with writing a document or an email or some outreach, but now it's just kind of there's a lot of trust that comes directly from the output of an LLM, kind of short circuiting the process of going and talking to someone who's actually like been in the trenches and done this or that before. So I think that trust is something that is hard earned. There's lots of conflict, tension, and things like that make it more difficult than things that just give us that instant dopamine hit of, yeah, I agree with this. I didn't use the V word. I said agree with this, and I'm just going to go with it, or it's being sycophantic and it's working with me. Like, I really think that there needs to be an emphasis on who is in your network and how like what can we help each other do and build.
Yeah, and I inherited from a mentor of mine like three rules for jobs. I don't know why I always anchor back to like rules and assessments. Like I always feel like my brain likes some sort of structure when evaluating opportunities. And so I think I've shared these three rules before, but it needs to be like a a leader you can learn from or trust, right? The trust is the piece I really want to dissect a little bit more. It's got to be
Mm-hmm.
work that like is meaningful or matters to you, and there's subjectivity in like that work. And then the team that you surround yourself with has to be like people that fill in some of your weak spots, or bring a skill set that maybe you don't like. You have to kind of enjoy your boss and your team and the work, right? And that has
Mm-hmm.
always that criteria set has like served me well. Let me apply that for a second. So I was interviewing for this board position. It was a nonprofit board. It was around helping young women through running. So
Awesome.
I was like,
I
okay,
want to know more about that, but
yeah,
I know we got to stay on
yeah.
topic.
So I was like, okay, check like meaningful work. That it's not really about the running, but it is about the running. Um, they said there's like a bunch of different board members, and so I thought I would like that. I didn't get to meet any of them yet. I'm not through the interview process, but I was like, okay, check. Like at least the work seemed meaningful. The lady that would be the executive director seemed great. She and I totally vibed. Chris, haha, right? So I was like, okay, like we started to get into like a deeper conversation, and so for me that always was like a factor. Like, could you be real with the person? Right? Getting back to
Mm-hmm.
this trust argument, like, I don't really enjoy any of my relationships to be like superficial. So if you're only like, hey, how are you, friends? Like, that's just not kind of the relationships that I find meaning in. I can say hi to my LLM, right? If all I get back is hi, how are
Mm-hmm.
you? So, we started to, talk about like substantive things. And I was like, okay, great. It's two of three. I can pursue this opportunity. But I think I've learned in this last year of adventures that like one of the most key elements, I think, in this equation comes down to, can you trust a person, right? Can you trust that boss? Can you trust that teammate? And I think trust is part of the thing that determines, is this a relationship for a reason, or is it going to be a relationship for a season? And I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've got some experiences that you'd want to share with us on that too, but it's definitely a concept that I've been struggling a lot with now, is like, how do where do you put your trust if not in yourself, right? Because I trust myself a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and I trust myself somewhat.
Okay.
Uh,
Really?
yeah, somewhat. Chris Hemphill can be reliable sometimes.
Oh, I think
Uh,
Chris Hemphill is wildly reliable, but keep going.
w- well, I think that like starting something and having a little company with some clients and things like that. Um, I'll get a job done and like deliver on some project or promise and things like that. But I don't want that anything that people say, like compliments and things like that, getting into my head. Like I want to stay
Mm.
humble and like identify where my weaknesses are and gaps and gaps and things like that. And that is where it leads to like, well, hey, as like solopreneur or entrepreneur, what have you, you come up against the fact that you've got taxes, you've got promotion, you've got marketing, you've got client deliverables, you've got all these different things, and at some point with your limited tiny amount of dollars that you have on hand, because if you came from a big company with millions or billions of dollars, then a lot of these other things are handled for you, but you're like in this world, like you're accountable for everything that happens, and you might not have the resources to make all a bunch of hires, but you start realizing what the gaps are, and the fact that if I'm going to spend time on writing this or editing this, then it's taking away time from other vital functions. So trust becomes extremely valuable. because you just have all the pressure in the world that if we don't deliver well enough on this thing, then it causes a whole lot of other things to collapse with clients and all that. And there's just this big burden that says there's some things that you're doing, but you have to let go, and you have to be willing to invest in other people to help with those processes. And I'm just going to use an example here. Like it was really like with writing. I take writing very personally, and
I've never seen you anything you've written. I don't think.
what?
I think maybe the only thing I've seen that you've written was your narrative around your use case, which I thought was very well done. But I don't. Other than that, I have not seen your writing.
Well, that's because you've seen like LinkedIn and like Discord chats and stuff like that, but the writing,
Oh, yeah.
like yeah,
I don't know that I
deep
would have.
research.
I guess, yeah, sorry. I didn't equate that with like, you're right. Like, I was like, oh, you're not sending me your journal articles, Chris. Could
Oh,
you send them over? I'd like to read them.
there is a major one. There's a major one that just finished,
Okay.
and yeah, and I fortunately didn't trust myself enough to just like write this thing. The major piece. It's available now. It is called. Let me get the exact title for people's modular feedback. This is my company. We never even talk about we barely talk about our companies anymore. This article is called Reclaiming AI for Health Equity, NAAP and Sanofi's Playbook for Ethical Innovation. And if I trusted myself too much, then what I would have done was completely just written this piece. And what it is, it's taking this piece that the NAACP and Sanofi partnered to develop to help encourage people to build build AI with health equity in mind. So taking AI from kind of like general purpose models that people invest in and implement blindly, and start asking healthcare leaders and developers to start thinking about how can we deploy these things in a way that address issues like black maternal health or challenges that community health workers face. So I wrote an article like talking about my experiences developing down that pathway. But rather than just saying, okay, this is done, this is good enough, I actually hired an editor to go through and just make sure that the prose and all that was intact, and make sure that I was doing justice to this subject matter that I find very important. Then on top of that, I had a couple of friends in the research field, Dr. Kara Emery at NYU McSilver Institute, and Dr. K. Nikiforova, who I partner with on some other things. They went through and they gave a look at it, and so did the NAACP. So rather than it just being like, my trust, I feel like I can communicate pretty well and put strings some ideas together, but I had to take my baby to other people that I trusted to help get this thing to a level that really does justice to the amount of research and work and effort that has been going into health equity and going into sound statistics for over 100 years.
And so, this is amazing, and we should definitely post it up so others can read it. As
Mm-hmm.
you, went to Dr. K, you said someone that I really trusted. How did you, how did you think you built that trust with Dr. K? Is it because you've worked together in the past and those experiences have been positive? Has it been because they helped you through a time that, where you needed help and you could rely on them? Like that's the piece I think our listeners, who can hire with the infrastructure, has probably many of whom have hired before with the infrastructure of like HR and vetting teams. But when you need to do it yourself, as you mentioned, like what engenders trust for you?
With Dr. K, with Michael, who I asked to do the editing, and with Kara, It's that we've all been in the trenches in some way together. Like with Dr. K, we have this other initiative called Safer AI Use, where we advocate for we know people are going to be using LLMs for mental health purposes, but they're not aware of like the failure the failures and patterns that indicate that they're not really delivering the type of help or type of advice that people want. So we've been working together on that project to help people identify when things are going off the rails, and it just becomes a no-brainer at this point. Like being in the trenches with someone who's been just really honest and earnest about what they think about all these issues over the years. Like it just becomes a no-brainer to say, hey, I trust you enough to go through this. And they love to offer feedback, and they always ask for permission. Kay, if you're listening to this, stop asking for permission to give feedback and just give the feedback, because I trust it 100%. It is welcome. But yeah, there's something about being in the trenches with people that lets you know, like, when there's a problem, how they're going to behave and how they're going to react. And when it comes to moments like this, that was a no-brainer too. Yeah.
What about someone that you've not worked with before? How do you take that trust forward? Do you have advice for our founders there? Someone recommends someone work with you. How do you automatically give them trust?
No. It's hard. There is a tough wall to get around. But I think that if that wall is too tough, then it's costly. Well, our producer said, LOL. What's going on, Alyssa? Either way, I trust Alyssa, and that was easy, easily earned trust. She does such a great job editing these episodes.
Yeah. Well, okay. And you trusted Alyssa to be our editor based on my recommendation, so it was a perfect segue, right? I was like, Alyssa can do
recommendation.
This. Right.
There's recommendation, but also you got to get in the trenches in some way. So what Alyssa and I did early on was I just rambled through how the editing process works in DaVinci Resolve, and we had some small asks early on, and we saw how quickly she picked up on the new skill of video editing, and it was just it became obvious. So there we found an excuse to get in the trenches, and I'll say it like this too. When we back at Wobot, when we would hire people, we would ask them to just send us a 10-minute presentation on what they would do to expand in some market or some region. And just based on how they react and the type of research they do and communication, that let us know. I'm gonna give a shout out to Rory Burrill, because he blew it out of the water. I forgot the name of the company he's at right now, but Rory, if you're listening to this, shout out. You blew it out of the water in your presentation, and it was just obvious that we made a right choice in hiring you a while back. But it's a matter of for me, it's a matter of finding some way to get in the trenches. I'll just give one more example too, outside of healthcare entirely. Is you see this microphone here?
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually used to do voice acting for a sci-fi podcast called SCP Pod.
I learn something new every day. Wait, you'll have to tell us after how you got into that, but keep going with the story.
They saw my my Twitch and my YouTube channel where I was reading horror stories and playing music. That explains some of the synthesizers and things like that, if you see them on screen. But what they did to evaluate, okay, we got this voice actor, we've seen some of their stuff online, but how can they do? How can they really do for us? And they actually paid I think $25, $50, just earnest money to say, hey, read this script and send us the recording. And that was rather than a whole bunch of interviews and things like that. I liked that process, because it showed respect to the person they were hiring, to say, hey, we're going to pay you for this very small project. And it allowed them to see instead of what happened, like what I do for myself, or the content that they were seeing online. It allowed them to just really evaluate whether or not I was going to be a good fit for the role. So that I'm just offering that up to extrapolate on, like, hiring somebody for a small role, a small project. You start seeing, okay, are we going to be, like, we're in the trenches? Are they going to be worthy of, like, the next type of big thing that might come along?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How
I
does
do
that
like that.
resonate?
It resonates because I mean I think I look at similar. I think what I'm just grappling with a little bit, just sharing, is I have offers to hitch my wagon into other places, and um, I'm trying to evaluate a good framework for kind of deciding if I will do that. And then on the on the other hand, also, as I think about as stealth grows, and making the right selections to add more folks into stealth, I've been trying to be more disciplined. And since it's like, it's contract work, it's not employed work, right? There are some nuances around, you know, using HR, right? You're not doing the same thing you might do if you were hiring a true employee. So I was just trying to think through, probably our founders have faced similar challenges like that as well, and how might they have done different things. So I like to ask people those questions and kind of do some user interviews around, how are others doing hiring. I'm not saying I'm the expert, or how are others working through decisions like mergers and strategic alliances, and even potentially taking on larger roles in spaces. You have to decide, like, it's one thing to be an advisor for the company, but to go all in and join them, or, even in a more fractional role, you really need to believe, in my mind, in at least in the mission. You have to like your manager, and you have to like the team.
That's a 100%. Um, and one thing I want to that I take from that is sometimes, like, like we shouldn't look at people as, like, solidly locked into whatever corporate structure you met them in, like whatever job they were working, because as you develop trust, those relationships shift. Different people start companies, or they go and work at new places, and then that becomes potential opportunities to engage in these different spaces in different ways too. And the main reason I'm reflecting on that is just because I was having a conversation with another data scientist who has gone independent. We worked together at Wobot, and she actually helped with some of the health equity AI work that I was involved in the early 2020s. Dr. Steph Enef, shout out to you too. But yeah, like, just we've been talking about this trust and how to navigate these networks before, and I think that all fits in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you have advice for me, Chris, as I think about, you know, um, choosing companies to go more deeply in, or adding additional support into, my company?
The only advice that I have for you on that, and like, if you have some more specific stuff, please fire away. But I want to start off with something that I've started doing that you might notice, that I will just run a company. I'll run a concept by you, and that, like, if I'm curious about the way something operates, like, I know that you fully understand commercializing go to market strategy within this health tech world and all that. So I look at you as, like, I'll just rattle off something that a company might be doing, and you'll have the appropriate feedback there. So you can take that same advice, and obviously already do, when it comes to, well, like, the scientific underpinnings, or the, like, are they the real deal when it comes to what they're talking about from an AI or machine learning modeling perspective? So you got me, you got Val, you've got Valerie Hoffman. I'm shouting out so much. Sorry, y'all. But yeah, just just
I love that though,
knowing
Chris.
that, yeah, you
Like,
got friends along the
honestly,
way.
it's like, one of my big paradigms I always try to live by is that, like, you want to be with people that will say your name in rooms that you're not in a positive way, and so you do that so
Hmm.
consistently. That's awesome.
I'm just so thankful, straight up thankful, because like again, trust is hard earned. Like what I was trying to emphasize early on is there's so much at risk here. It's not like I have like a giant amount of like a big pile of money that I'm sitting on. So like these decisions are make or break for not just a business but life. So yeah, it's so powerful and valuable to have people that you can trust outside of just the LLM.
Mhm. Well, and do you think people make? I'm going to give a talk in another month on finances, and one of the things I've been asking people as I go through is like, do you think people make differentiated decisions if they feel like they don't have enough money? Um, it's a very leading question, obviously, but like, are there perverse incentives you think when people feel like they can't meet their financial needs? Like, do you see people that you previously have trusted before act differently? I know I have, right? There's a whole fear-based scarcity mindset that I see a lot when people are worried about covering their bills. It makes total sense, but
Yeah. I mean, there's a cynic in me that was definitely paid way too much attention to my economics classes. But I'm always wondering about conflict of interest if I'm asking someone a question. Even
biases.
today,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, like what might be influencing their biases, and money can be an aspect of that. So even if I trust someone, like I know that perhaps like if I worked at some company that manufactures let's just call it widgets because we're speaking in economics class terms, then maybe I'm going to be naturally more favorable to answering questions in favor of those widgets just because that pads my income. So I think it's a consideration on how money motivated somebody might be, and like they might not even know that their answer is being distorted by other factors.
This
And
is
I
the
just want
data
to
scientist in you for sure.
But speaking of data science too, there's an author who wrote a book called Data Contracts. Mark Freeman, great person to follow on LinkedIn. But yeah, even this morning I told him about a product strategy that I was thinking about and asked him. Even though he's the author of the book, I said, I know it's silly that you're the author and I'm asking, should I buy your book? But should I buy your book? So just always have those things in mind. Don't be a 100% cynic when
Hmm.
it comes to that. Like know these people and you know how they've acted, and some people are more motivated by money or recognition or other factors than others. So don't let it be a 100% cynicism wash, but just be aware of where potential biases can come in.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, I think there are so many, like you said, there's so many worries you might have as a founder or someone starting something new, and then, this idea of bias, over can make it even more challenging as, you're interacting with someone to say, like, what is their motivation for even sharing this with me? It's just
Mm-hmm.
a very interesting to me topic on, and I'd love to bring on, an expert in trust at some point to like talk to the audience a little bit more because I just think it's such an interesting um, concept that I didn't realize how important it was. I mean, you make your choices like, hey, where would I see myself either with a partner or at an education level, but like when you're deciding to build a business and who you build that business with is another huge decision as well. It's such a contract, and you see such interesting dynamics, founder dynamics, when that, for some whatever reason that trust is broken. And I think I've just been seeing a lot of that pattern lately. Some people that are vibing completely with those that are either their board or their investors or their, co-founders, and then others that are just not. And so I find these stories really interesting of like co-founder disputes or breakups or, but I like the good stories. I'm not trying to gravitate towards the negative. I think I've heard a few more, negative stories lately than I had experienced in that first year.
Let's dig into that, because I feel like you have such an interesting perspective, a powerful perspective. A lot of people jumping in might misplace their bets and misplace their trust based on signals that, if they had only listened to this podcast episode, they would have known to avoid. So, what can you lean on one of the negative stories that stands out, and what could have been done differently?
Yeah, without like, violating any trust, there, no pun intended. Okay. So I think one of the things that I've been learning in at least the fractional hiring has been like, one, two, or three rules, right? Let's just start with like the easy one. I loved your guidance on like start small. Someone had given me advice way, way early on that you need to work with someone 6 months before you put yourself in a position to give them any sort of equity or tie your businesses together. I think that's
Mm.
even more solid advice 2 years in, right? In that, like, people have to kind of earn their way into your um, ecosystem, and that you need to have several at bats with them to see them in times of good and times of high pressure. Every relationship at the beginning is sunny. People are putting their best feet forward and over delivering. But it's just interesting to see how people respond and react with pressure, with challenges. Are they the person holding your hand in the trenches, lifting you out of the trench? Are they, just complaining about the trench? I found that analysis to be fascinating, and now can almost categorize people to like, are they lifting me out? Are they just want to talk about the trench? Or, um, are they, building a whole ladder because, they never want anyone to be stuck in a trench again?
So what are some of the tells then? It sounds like if they're doing more talking than doing, but how do you define these?
Yeah, I think I'm still working through that. That's probably a better question to ask me in like 6 months. But for sure, I love where you went on this idea of, doing more doing than talking, kind of working your way out of the problem. Um, I think this idea, you mentioned it with Dr. K, but it's a concept, I think, of do you want comfort or solutions? I think sometimes understanding how, asking how should I show up for you in this adventure is also helpful too. And that can be dependent on their role, like whether, you're the boss or your equals or all of that, um, is interesting. And then I think the third piece that I have really started to lean in on is like, is the person suited for the task? That I think, if we're in the trench together, are they the person with the loud voice that should be calling out for help, or are they extremely technical and should they actually start like building that ladder? But sometimes, I need to look back and say, did I set that person up for success based on what I asked them to do? And was that actually something that, even if they said they were capable of, were they actually capable of doing that? And that's really hard. And having that conversation, I think, when you find that they're not capable and it's a wrong match, it's hard to give that feedback. Um, or at least when you're not expecting to give that feedback, I've found it hard.
Yeah, yeah, because like it absolutely hurts. Like, especially because trust, it goes deeper than, is this person honest? And that depth, I believe, is not just a measure of honesty. It's a measure of, if we set out on a mission together, are we going to accomplish that mission? Like, what's the range of things? And that plays into your thinking into, like, is this person cast properly for this role or the other? So when it comes to that, like, knowing that you've had to have these types of conversations, what are some things? Because we know, if you, I would guess that our audience is a bit more empathetic than a lot of spaces that they could be. So what's your advice to the empathetic entrepreneur on how to sever that relationship
Oh, I
or
don't know if
prepare for
I'm
that conversation?
qualified enough for this advice. I mean, I think it's so interesting that, like, having a whole HR department, one of the things I think is incredibly important to have is like someone you can trust from an HR point of view, be it your attorney or someone with HR experience. I think people wildly club the need, under club the need for HR, and that they think it's like a luxury. I don't think it's a luxury. I actually think it's somewhat of a necessity these days. And maybe we'll even need some flavor of AI HR to govern, like, are we using our AI appropriately and govern the autonomous workforce as well? I had the pleasure of seeing Johnny Taylor at SHRM give a talk over the last month. I'll try to see if I've got any clips or sound bites from that I can share with the audience. But I think number one is like, don't underclub the importance of like HR. A second piece would be a little bit around like clear and direct is kind. I've been trying to learn from others who I really respect or who have been very successful, even if I don't totally respect them, in terms of like, what is their communication style? Does their communication style get results? And this idea of being kind but direct is really um, resonating with me, in that, like, am I beating around that proverbial bush, or do I
Hmm.
just need to say, hey, I was super disappointed in how you showed up, or be your work product? And then also being open that others can be that direct with me, because I need to improve as well. I'll use like a personal example. My husband won't love it. Like, he doesn't love when I talk about him on the podcast, but he's very clear on his expectations for the children, and I like that. And sometimes he jokes around with them, and then some of those expectations go away. Like, if he's like, you need to be respectful to your parents, but then they're using funny names to each other, which may not be respectful. It sends a little bit of a mixed message.
Hmm.
So the more you can be clear and then kind of hold to your word, so people know how to expect you in each circumstance, I think it's easier to get the response or the output that you want from them, because you're always showing up in a consistent way and you're not inconsistent in your ask and your behavior.
Consistency is a powerful word in this conversation, because again, when we're thinking about what the outcome is going to be when we set out to do something together or accomplish something together, then like that consistency shines strong
Yeah.
when you're thinking through who to work with on something.
I think the final thing, I'll just keep going, is like, we also teach people how to treat us. So I'll use an example of my other business, the building we're building out with the podcast studio, with when we get enough founders and all, followers and all the things, right? So we had a weird moment via text with our builder. He won't listen to this podcast, so I think I'm like fine to like share with this. Like, we had gone through several iterations to find a builder that we wanted, and we got this second builder, or like the general contractor, on the recommendation of someone else. And I loved how he showed up. He was very, very collaborative. And then all of a sudden we weren't getting communication from him. And so um, I think my business partner sent a message, then I sent a message. I had not communicated with him before, and I got like a snappy response back. And I was direct in the text that, like, I was not okay with how the text came across, that I was excited to work with him. I had not asked him a question previously, and I wasn't used to being spoken to like this on a text. And it was great. I mean, he immediately apologized. All the communications since that have been great. And he's like, let's start again. Here's your update. Like, I don't think he intended his text to come across this way. At least that's the
Hmm.
story I'm telling myself. But it set a tone for our communication that, like, lady or not, I was not going to be spoken to in a diminutive way, not even on a text. And so I was glad, I was proud of myself for that, because normally I would have been like, "Oh, I'm so sad this person who I hired yelled." And I think the words I used is, "We're paying you a lot of money, right? For me to ask you to respond to a text should not, equate to this response." So it was a little bitchy, but like, you know, I was I was cool with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, like full diplomacy, but made your stance clear. And no matter how freaking high you are in the corporate ladder or the C's that you have behind your title, I would bet that the people listening here have these moments where they shied away from giving the needed feedback and being direct but kind about where the boundary is.
Yeah. Clear is kind.
Yeah. S- I wonder. You did mention like who evaluates the trust that we have in AI. And with that paper that I was talking about a little bit earlier, I would love to talk about that
Yeah.
if we have a couple of minutes.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean,
Okay.
I think I mean, I'm still worried and I'm still in the dark ages, Chris. I'm trying to figure out, can I trust people?
Hmm.
Tell us more about how do we trust our AI?
Well, I'm going to say some things that people might find dirty, but
It's not that kind of podcast, Chris.
not that kind of dirty. Not that we're hope power in healthcare here. Not that kind of dirty. But I'm long been of the opinion that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So the way we that we
Ooh.
approach models.
Oh, hold there. So you're actually starting from the negative. You're starting from the position of distrust and saying, earn my trust.
Yeah, yeah. Same thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
why we got to be in the trenches. Why we have to we have to ask the question by asking it this task: am I going to get what I expect? And that's something that like in the paper and with NAACP and Sanofi standards, their concept is like when we're thinking about what these models were trained on and the imbalance in like representation from communities of color and people that don't have as much financial resources and things like that. If those people are less represented in the data, but we don't have time for we don't have the time or the ability to wait for healthcare to be distributed equitably to where to where everybody is represented equal in the data, then what do we do with model outputs? So it's a like similar to the idea of like, can I trust this person based on the output that we might be expecting? You want to put models to the test and identify where they might be failing, where they might be representing the bias that was inherent in the data. So just I like people when I'm presenting about AI, they think that they need to be 100% optimistic about everything that every model does and everything that every big tech company is, and they apologize about being skeptical. But I'm like, hey, y'all, I'm a skeptic too. Like, if I wasn't skeptical, then I would accept the first output and not do anything to tune or retrain a model to better represent the underlying data. So just a lot of what the guide went over from NAACP and Sanofi, and I kind of reemphasize in my own companion, was establishing the right governance committees, so establishing the right people around these models to evaluate and understand the outputs, bringing in clinicians to make sure that they understand the reasons why it may have made a certain decision. And also super important, they advocated heavily for bringing in people from the community who you're building for, patient populations, underrepresented, like bringing people in
The
and
user
explaining
interviews.
and
Yeah.
yes, yeah, exactly that, exactly that. Like a lot of things that a lot of people miss. So trust it. Like we have no reason to trust like the first blush, first output. There's a whole lot of work and a whole lot of intelligence and design that we have to apply in healthcare to get these either like frontier LLM models or custom developed models. There's still a lot of work to get those that last mile edge to where we are now addressing the issues of our very biased and fraught past with healthcare.
Can you share anything that how are people reacting to this? Have you socialized this? Do people have concerns as you explain this? Are they looking for tips from you? Like, are they writing different prompts that say, cite my sources so I understand where you pulled the data and I can check myself? Like, give us more on maybe 2 or 3 practical things people can do to make sure their LLMs are very trustworthy beyond obviously reading your article.
Yeah, yeah. So initial reactions and things, like I'm actually because I've been working on the with the health equity focus for years. Like when I say things like all models are wrong, or even like at one of your an event at BHT, I told somebody that I just assumed that a model is racially and gender biased, and they were surprised by that. And
Oh, so awareness. We have an awareness problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
there is an awareness problem because, and I think it's because they're people on the other side of all models are wrong, are the data never lies, and I think that a lot of people are mistakenly led into that never lies concept and don't ask the appropriate questions, and therefore don't hold their vendors accountable. But one major thing, like technical or non-technical, if you're leading these evaluation efforts, make sure that there is some evaluation on how the outputs and distributions differ among racial groups and the intersection of race and gender, because that like holding our models to that question back in 2020 was the genesis of this obsession with making sure on this, because we just saw things that were just wildly different, even though the top metrics, the top line accuracy metric looked nice. So that's the major piece of advice, and I've seen it more and more in health systems doing evaluations. Like they're now holding governance as a priority, and holding these standards as a priority as more and people learn about these biases. But the first question, the first part is get that compass out and know where you are, know how far off these things are, and start thinking through ways to address it. My other one that I don't see very much of is that once people have identified this bias and done their mitigation steps and things like that, they often just like consider it done. Okay, we ran our test internally, and okay, we're good. I don't think that's good enough. I think it's a great step. It's great that the head is not entirely in the sand, saying that, hey, the data never lies, and there were some test and mitigation steps. But I strongly believe in having a disinterested or minimally interested third party. Like this goes all the way back to that conflict of interest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be giving ourselves a pat on the back. So by having another team or group of people that are familiar with this type of model, this type of process, this type of outcome to do that third party evaluation, it'll reveal cracks and things that that you might not have been expecting. And then when it comes to that commercialization aspect, I was speaking with someone who leads clinical clinical decision support at EBSCO, and she was telling me that like it mirrors exactly what I've seen, is that it's becoming more and more like these equity questions are becoming more and more part of vendor evaluations. So having that third party backing is a strong leap ahead of what competitors may be doing. So it answers that business question and the ethics question all at the same time.
I'm still catching up. And so are you arguing that even when we ask our chat GPT questions, Chris, that we should validate what's coming back from chat GPT, or do we wait to do this more exhaustive trust verification exercise on the algorithms when we're, building this into part of our companies? Do you do it across
yeah, we were
the
talking
board?
about two different things.
Yeah.
We were talking about two different things there. So I was talking from the perspective of, we're going to put an algorithm in place. We're going to put out a program in place for our health system or for our health tech. That's the angle I was talking about there.
Yes, but does it extend?
Oh yeah, it definitely extends.
Yeah.
I can even use examples of the article, the NAAC
tell
article
me.
yeah. So the article is very heavy on W.E.B. Du Bois and his history in doing data science and doing statistics better than a large number of people are doing it today. So we're talking like 130 something years ago, like the methods that he was using outclass a lot of methods that I've seen in practice today. But when I was doing the research on that, I did use like the LLM search functionality to go through PubMed and find and verify various claims. And I was finding that the LLM was parroting things that weren't really even represented in like W.B. Du Bois's source material. So it became this kind of cross-checking exercise of seeing what the LLM would
Yeah.
say about a particular quote, but then going and trying to find the primary source material. And it was made up, not because the LLM wasn't using PubMed, but because the quotes in PubMed in peer-reviewed articles were not actually reflecting what W.B. Du Bois said in the primary source material. So
It
there is
reminds Yeah, it reminds me so much of what we did in law school around like citing your sources and trying to find the right case that applies to the right law. And sometimes you would read a whole case and be like, I have no idea how that applies, or it doesn't, even if it says it applies, right? Like, um,
yes.
it's very similar in the concept.
Yeah, yeah. So, like we've talked about that big like I'm doing this for hundreds of thousands of people perspective, but when it's on that personal perspective, it's always about like identifying where is this coming from, what can I point to that actually backs this up, and also for funsies, repeating the same question over and over again. And seeing how the answers may vary, because a lot of people like they'll take that first answer as gold, but not be realizing like, oh, this is a probabilistic system that has my context here, and the like I want to see how far off the answers are from each other, either in my one Chat GPT instance or across a bunch of different LLMs.
Yeah, like making sure that the consistency is there is so important
Yeah,
in the
and
responses.
it's also kind of illuminating too, because like you and me, like we have a lot of experience with these things, but people just jumping in that might be told like these things have all the answers. They need to discover that, hey, you don't want to just take the output as 100%
As
gold.
gospel. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I think we have to hop into our pop culture session. So I will popcorn it to you, Chris. What have you been
Oh,
watching, reading, other than your or writing? We know what you've been writing. So what's your pop culture moment for the week?
my one of my favorite artist music is Giant Claw, and this guy Keith Rankin out of Columbus, Ohio, and just got together with another artist, Galen Tipton, and came out with this album called Mobile Suit Gym Rat. And what it is, it's just it's a brand new album, but it sounds like it was ripped out of the '90s. Like
No,
all the sounds and samples and everything like that
vibes.
is like, yeah, it's '90s vibes all the way through, with just this crazy noisy layer to it. It is so fun, dance like dancey type music. Like when Keith was interviewed about it, he said he just wanted to make what he thought was the perfect pop album, and I feel like he in his own way did that.
I love it. I love it. Okay, I will have to go listen or work it into my Spotify at some point. Um, I have been watching something completely devoid of any value, which
Awesome.
I know you love when I do that. I have been watching, I think I watched every episode of Southern Charm for the entire season in like four separate settings where I just like put it on in the background while I'm working. And
Where
it
does that take place?
in Charleston, South Carolina.
Ooh, that's a very charming
It
area.
is. It's like the ninth iteration of this friend group. Like different people come into the mix. And in this episode, very on brand for this episode, you see two friends who have been friends for a long time be ripped apart, be it where they're basically like, I just don't like who you are as a human. Like you lie, or you keep hanging out with the girl that I like, or you lead girls on, and it's just interesting to watch this friendship completely devolve, um, and sad in a little bit of a way, because it's probably people that they really, really trust and they've been filming for a long time. And you can honestly see the cracks in their relationship just going. So I've been watching, we just made it to the reunion. That was last night. I haven't seen the reunion yet, but I'll probably watch it sometime over the weekend. Well, maybe not, because it's the start of March Madness, my other favorite time of the year. So I will be watching that. We can talk all the sports next week when we record.
Well, you got me curious about Southern Charm. Being have spent a gigantic portion of my life in the South, and I'm heading back down south in September to Atlanta, Georgia. So
Oh, with
yeah,
Alyssa, you guys can hang. It's gonna
yes,
be so good.
yes.
So good. Well, yeah, we'll share our pop culture recommendations. Yes, go Georgia. Not in the tournament though, because I don't think I had them in the bracket for myself. So, go UConn, and then we'll see what happens.
Hey, as ATL, Birmingham, Mobile, y'all are my people. Go all y'all.
Amazing, amazing. Well, let's vibe our way out of this episode. And thanks for hanging out and talking a little bit about trust, both people and AI.
Stay tuned for more vibes, y'all.